AFM from the Spatium Atomic Force Microscopy. This is a technique to characterize the nanomaterials, and there are many techniques to characterize the nanomaterials like the XRD and transmission electron microscopy and the scanning electron microscopy. So one of here is the atomic force microscopy. This is one of the best technique to characterize the nanomaterials. The working of this technology is that there is a probe which on the surface of material which is under the characterization process. This probe is actually oscillating, the vibrating like this, which is connected to a piezoelectric scanner which make it vibrate on the surface of nanomaterials, which detect the Coulombic force of atoms. When this is near about the surface, the Coulombic force repels the probe, and when there is no atom, there is a gap on the surface in between the two atoms, that probe go deeper, closer, and when the atom comes, that repel it outside. So it's maximum undulations on the surface which are detected by a laser reflection from the surface of the probe. Here the laser is falling on the surface of the probe, which is vibrating on the surface of nanomaterials, and that reflection goes to the photodetector. Then detector is connected to the topography detector, which is recording the behavior of oscillations, the laser reflection, and that oscillations of the probe. The graph is recorded like this, and the probe is a main instrument on characterizing the nanomaterials in this technique. So this photodetector is detecting the reflection from the laser on the top of the probe. Then next is the pose, and as you can see here that if you zoom what is happening on the surface of the nanomaterial is that here the probe, when there is an atom, the probe is repelled because of the Coulombic force, and if there is a gap between two atoms, then the probe is dipping down on the surface. When another atom comes, that the probe is moving up. So the up and down, that oscillations are seen like that in a recording graph of the topography. And this graph is actually a signature of the surface of nanomaterials. What is happening inside the atomic packing of the nanomaterials and the structure of the nanomaterials. So these patterns of vibrations of the probe is converted into the graph, and the probe ups and downs because of the Coulombic force of electronic charges on the atoms. So by the probe vibrations on surface, if there is a vibration in the probe, then we say this is a non-contact mode. The probe is in the non-contact mode if this is vibrating, and the vibration range is around 100 to 200 nanometer. This from surface to the probe peak, the peak of the probe, that tip, the gap between tip and the surface of the nanomaterial is just around under the range of 100 nanometer to 200 nanometer. If the probe is not vibrating, then there is a contact mode. The probe is in the contact mode. The probe does not vibrate. So the characterization of nanomaterial by the vibrations or non-vibrations of the probe on surface of nanomaterial is detected by topographic recordings, and this graph gives the signature of surface of nanomaterial. This is a graph taken from the vibrating probe on the surface of nanomaterial, and that in the x-axis there is the separations of probe to the sample, as well as we move the sample across the probe, or we move the probe across the sample surface. The force interaction with respect to the probe tip is given in the form of the graph. As well as the probe is moving on the surface like this, passing across the surface of the probe in nanometer scale. The force variations is seen in form of the graph like this. Like that, there is a maximum peak. That means there was the repulsion when the probe was on the top of surface. There was atom, and due to the Coulombic force of repulsion, the probe was repelled, and the force peak is seen as this here. And as the probe is moving in there is a gap again. Then there is a peak or peak observed on the surface of the probe. So that means the peaks are here. There are the particles, and the lower graph tells that there was nothing. There was bonding between two atoms. There was nothing. There was no atom. So the atoms gapping is this given by the graph, and the gap then particle then. So this graph is actually telling about the many information about the structure of surface of nano material. And there is a second graph taken from the probe vibrations, the frequency of the vibration, the frequency of the probe in hertz, and the power consumed by the probe piezoelectric scanner. So there are the two graphs in that x and y axis, the top one and bottom down. The top one is telling about how far away the probe is from the surface, as well as the probe is moving on above the surface, is going far away from the surface. This is the graph for the probe far away from the surface. If the probe is very close to the surface, then the second graph is, you can see this is the second graph for probe closer to the surface. So the distance high from the surface and distance close to the surface, two graphs are recorded by the topography, the detector or photo detector. This graph is observed frequency and power graph. So this also is telling many things about the atoms and the spacing of the atoms, as well as the frequency increasing, how the surface above the frequency changing, and closer to the surface of atom frequency changing with respect to the power. So we can say that the atomic force microscopy AFM can be used to measure the single covalent bond of atoms, and this is a powerful technique to measure the binding of molecules such as the DNA, RNA, ligands, and protein molecules, the binding of these molecules. And also we can measure the nanoparticles spacing by using the AFM. So this is one of the best characterization technique to measure the nanostructures and the bonding of molecules in the nano scale levels. Thank you.